Unlock the future of pathology with Pathology News, your ultimate source for cutting-edge insights, expert analysis, and the latest breakthroughs in digital and computational pathology. Don't just stay informed, stay ahead.
Hello and welcome to Pathology News and to the latest in our series of interviews with key thought leaders in our industry. Today my guest is Joe Yeh, co-founder, CEO and chairman at aetherAI, and this is a company advocating an AI approach to drive adoption and innovation in our industry. aetherAI's stated mission is to use state-of-the-art information technology to improve standards of healthcare and quality of human life. So Joe, welcome to Pathology News.
Jonathan, pleased to meet you. Thank you for inviting me.
Perhaps we could start by you telling us something about your career, what brought you into the domain of digital pathology?
Sure. I was initially trained as a medical doctor, but I was hoping to pursue a career in scientific research. So I went to the United States for research. Just what happened that I ended up in a pathology institution. So I was doing a pathobiology PhD, but I was actually doing developmental biology research, studying chicken skin. And it was during my research that I got very interested in microscopy. I learned to build two-photon microscope, write a computer program to control the microscope, and write my own computer program to analyze images. So, slowly I drifted toward kind of engineering field. So eventually I was thinking about an alternative career where I could use a multidisciplinary skill to solve unmet needs in healthcare. And that was when I founded aetherAI in 2015. Eventually I quit my PhD in the 8th year to focus on the company. We have been growing ever since. So I haven't strayed too far from my background because I'm still related to healthcare and I'm, dealing with images and I'm, just using whatever I've learned in the past 20 years to fulfill my dream and serve the healthcare industry. That's just a very brief story of the company background.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And a big decision to move from academia, as you said, in 2015 and found a company. So what were your thoughts behind that, the early vision for the company and how you thought you could do things differently?
I think, to be very honest, the most important thought is I want to be my own boss. So in academia was feeling a bit stifling to me because the way, research was organized and I couldn't really pursue my own interest in research. So that's probably the major decision point. And the topic I chose was not very different from my original background. So that made it easier for me to make the jump.
Yeah, I see that. And then imagine thinking the main product of the company is Ether Slide. And tell us about how you feel that's unique in the market from other digital pathology systems.
Yeah, so I didn't know it back then when I first started the company. So I started the company in 2015. My initial thought is to, just work on digital pathology. But in around 2 years, in around 2017, I noticed something that was very important. Without AI, digital pathology would never happen. So in 2017, I learned to do AI on my own. And I actually changed your initial company name to aetherAI, its current name, because I recognize AI is ultimately going to the most important promotion for adoption of digital pathology. So we are different in that we do both AI and image management system. Because again, we believe that without AI, digital pathology will never happen. So I think very few companies are actually doing both IMS and AI. That is where aetherAI is most different from other companies.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And I've seen this term true Gigapixel AI technology.
Right.
So how does that enhance the efficiency of AI development?
Yeah, so in around 2017, most people do AI in the so-called patch-based method, because whole slide images have extremely high resolution, and the accelerator used for training AI GPU has limited memory, so you have to divide whole slide images into small patches. But when you do so, you need to annotate each patch. So there's a need for detailed annotation, which makes AI very expensive in terms of the human labor you have to put in. And we're actually thinking about, we need to ask pathologists to do annotation. So it was unsustainable, the old way of doing AI. And the major constraint is now in the hardware. So we have spent many, many years working on this problem, trying to overcome the memory limitation that is coming from GPU. So eventually we're able to train AI directly using undivided whole slide images. That's why we call it Gigapixel. So if we are able to do that, then we can use readily available slide level diagnosis, which is the sign-out diagnosis, to train AI directly without having to perform detailed annotation. This dramatically improves the throughput of AI production. So we believe that is a very important factor because now there is a global lack of pathologists. They already have a very huge workload and they just don't have time for detailed annotation. So we believe that's the true game changer here.
Mm-hmm. So which AI products do you offer at the moment?
We offer several. So not all of them are approved as medical device, but we have a lot of ongoing projects, starting from the very popular one, which is breast cancer RC quantification, or Ki-67 ERPR HER2. And we also have gastric cancer lymph node metastasis detection AI model. We now have also expanded it to cover breast cancer. And also we have the latest AI model for classifying colon biopsy into either being malignant or benign. And we also have another project working on the gastric biopsy classification as well. We have some more in our pipeline that is more research oriented. But in total, we have more than 10 AI projects going on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's quite a range. And I know, obviously, as you grow a business, you need to have key customers, collaborations. What's been your approach to sort of developing these customers and getting out the beta testing, the alpha testing with different hospital sites? So who are your key collaborators?
We have many of them. So now our IMIS has been installed in more than 20 institutions in 4 countries. But of course, we began with Taiwan. Back in 2017, 2018, our initial thought was that we need to work with our customer to figure out what the ultimate product will look like, because we sense that there's a lot of change on the AI front, on the IMIS front. So our first ever version of the product was co-created by us and our customer. They told us their need. We advised them on, how AI can be utilized to improve pathology, and together we create the first prototype of our product. And eventually, over time, we keep improving on it. So we actually call our customer our partner as well. We listen to their feedback with regard to how we can further improve our product. With every customer, we have some, feedback coming in, and we keep adding new feature. Still now, we are improving our products. And I think we haven't reached the perfection yet. There's still room for improvement, but we've always worked very closely with our customer. Our most important customer in Taiwan was our very first customer, Changde Memorial Hospital. It's a hospital chain. So initially they digitized 4 of their branches. So together we created the first prototype. But then later on, we have also National Taiwan University Hospital. That's the top ranked hospital in Taiwan. We also added some new feature. Internationally, we also have key customers in Germany. So for example, Tübingen University Hospital, Frankfurt University Hospital, and lately Aachen University Hospital. So, we work very closely with every one of our customers to try to see where we can keep improving our product.
I think I saw as well that you have a collaboration with Novartis in Taiwan. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is more on the biopharma area, maybe in drug discovery?
Yes. So the idea with regard to Novartis is that they have a problem with patient discovery when it comes to diseases that are difficult to diagnose. The topic we chose to work together on is for myeloproliferative neoplasm, MPN. So for pathologists that are not trained in hematopathology, diagnosing MPN could be quite challenging. And that's a problem for pharmas because if pathologists cannot make accurate diagnosis, then patients do not have access to the drugs. So the idea is to for us to work with experienced hematopathologists to make an AI that can help a general pathologist make accurate diagnosis for MPN to improve the patient discovery process so that, the patients can have their accurate diagnosis faster and have access to those medications. That's our collaboration with Novartis.
Hmm. Does that have the potential to become a companion diagnostic at some point?
Yes, there is that potential. But of course, it'll take time because we need to take our partnership level to a regional, even global level with Novartis to make it happen. And we're still working on it.
Yeah, but obviously quite, an exciting perspective.
Indeed.
You mentioned sort of international collaborations. I think I read that you have a presence in Japan and Singapore. Is that right?
Not in Singapore, but in Japan, yes. So in Japan, we have now major customers. For example, the Japan Foundation for Cancer Research, Ariake Hospital, has become our latest customer. So that's a very big, actually the biggest cancer hospital in Japan. So they're designing their next generation digital pathology system, and they chose aetherAI to be their partner. So of course, together we're gonna see how we can push the frontier even further and see how AI can be even deeper integrated into workflow. So
Sure.
that's on the Japan side. And then again, I mentioned in Germany, we have now 3 university hospitals as our customer and partners. So yes, we do have some international partnerships here.
Mhm. And I think sort of in terms of pushing yourselves out globally into international markets, you've recently received a round of funding, if I'm correct. Did I read 150 million new Taiwanese dollars?
Oh, that's several years ago, but so we became publicly listed last year. So before being publicly listed, we closed the funding round of 24 million US dollars. So yeah, that's quite a bit of funding to support us for national growth.
Good, good. And looking ahead a little bit, how do you see the integration of your products in this industry and the industry developing? AI, we've said, is becoming really hugely significant within digital pathology in the last few years. There are many competitors in the industry, obviously. How do you stay sort of unique and different as aetherAI?
First and foremost, I think it's still the integration of AI into IMS. And I think we're one of the very few companies in the world that actually has adopted the so-called Empire interface. So still now, integration between AI and IMS is still a very big problem. There are many AI vendors and many IMS vendors. Each integration is unique. So there's a lot of possibilities when it comes to integration between AI and IMS. Empire Consortium and the Empire Standard was designed specifically for this purpose, to standardize the integration, to make it easier for both companies to work together. So we have adopted the Empire interface and actually also help improve the Empire code base to make the integration much easier. So this is looking forward to a more open ecosystem where AI can be more easily deployed onto IMS. So we're taking great effort into making deploying AI onto EtherSlide much easier. That is where we are very unique. And also we work very closely with scanner manufacturer to make sure the interoperability is not a problem. So we can accommodate multiple scanner file type without having to convert them. And we keep improving on the efficiency of our file reader. And also we actively embrace the DICOM standard. Again, the idea is the same. We're looking forward to a more standardized platform where it is easier to change or say work with different vendors, be it hardware or software. So, and I'm convinced that we are among the very few companies that are actively investing resources into doing this.
Mhm. And of course, there are a lot of standards in the market, aren't there, at the moment? Pretty
Yeah.
much every company has their own standard, and some of them are proprietary as well.
Yeah.
I think it's a real challenge for anyone to read images.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think are the biggest challenges you've sort of met along the way with the company?
I think the biggest challenge is not for the company, but for the industry as a whole, because still now adoption of digital pathology has been slow. So for example, in the US, there's still a lot of hesitancy toward adopting DP because still now, I don't think companies or the industry in general has answered the questions regarding return on investment. What are the true benefit or say impact that digital pathology can bring to the traditional pathology workflow? So, but I would say we need to work harder on that. For example, when you look back 7 years, so most of the AI research focus on proving that AI can be accurate, but that is not enough for hospitals, right? You don't say how much value that can bring. So in one of our paper published in Nature Communications, we actually did measure the clinical benefit that our algorithm can bring to the clinical workflow. So we have identified that without AI, the manual diagnostic sensitivity for diagnosing metastasis for gastric cancer, in terms of micrometastasis, is 81% without AI. With AI, it can be improved to 95%. That's an important number, right? So we show that AI can improve diagnostic sensitivity while reducing review time by 25 to 30% in a clinical setting. So that is the critical number that we need to provide as an evidence to convince administration that it is worthwhile to go digital. That is the value they're looking at. But still, we need to create more research publication like this to show that there is a true benefit by going digital. And also, in many of the cases, pathologists would say hospital cannot see the benefit because the AI is not deeply integrated into the workflow. So for example, you cannot engage AI automatically. Very often you have to do manual activation. Say, I want to apply this AI to that slide. So we are working actively with a list vendor to make triggering AI automatic. That is also important, although not immediately apparent when you are not thinking about it. But to make a streamlined workflow is also one key factor to facilitate the adoption of DP. So that are the main challenges. So I think, although competition is important and a big problem, but still I think the industry as a whole have to work together to, prove the return on investment so that customers will be more willing to go digital for pathology. That's the biggest challenge that we see at this moment.
So I was just thinking as you were speaking there, you and I have both been around in digital pathology for quite a number of years. And I think before AI, when we had slide scanners, we had collaboration, we could manage MDTs, that sort of thing. The business case was still a little bit difficult to prove just with the scanners themselves. But I do think that the whole world of AI, which has come along as a second level of technology, has provided a true business case for this industry. Do you agree with that?
In part. We haven't done proving it. We're not done proving it. Still, the current way of producing AI is too expensive. So we're now thinking about it in a very hardware-oriented way. So meaning that you have to, create an AI and get it approved by FDA. That'll take 5 years for one software product, and that is very expensive. And without a reimbursement, the hospitals don't just buy that AI out of their own pocket. So that way has to be changed. There's also a change that has to be made on the FDA side because software is not produced like hardware. It can be adapted or it can be changing very rapidly. So still the current regulatory pathway is not ideal for the software environment. It's making it very expensive. So not affordable. But I think down the road, so I see some key technologies that are going to change this. So we're following those technology trends very closely. For example, the foundation model has tremendous impact in the industry, I believe. So with the foundation model, you can very easily fine-tune a model toward different applications with a small amount of data. So that'll change the cost structure for producing AI, essentially making creation of every pathology AI cheaper in general. So that is a true game changer, right? But also that creates problem for existing companies because they already invested a lot in their own pipeline. They have products that they have submitted for regulatory review for the authority, for the agencies. But do they have to retract those? That's a very big issue for them, right? So we also have that issue. We have some products in our old pipeline that are manufactured in the old way, but now we see this new wave of technology coming up using foundation model. And also the regulatory agencies who are now thinking of new ways of regulating these AI softwares and medical device. So it's difficult to play the catch up. But I think, well, that's the nature of business, because we need to make these changes happen so that, digital pathology can be adopted more widely. But I
Yeah.
think the future 2-3 years are going to be a very exciting ones.
Yeah, I agree. And, I go back to the days when I worked purely in biopharma in digital pathology. And of course, they don't have to worry about the FDA or any regulation apart from very localized approvals. And you've mentioned costs there. I think, costs will clearly decrease as technology becomes more efficient and we develop further processes. But regulation in the clinical market is quite a challenge at the moment because we regulate point solutions. And have you noticed any sort of change in attitudes from regulators, maybe in Taiwan, for example, or in Asia?
Yeah, so because we operate internationally, we do see big differences when it comes to regulation. So honestly, FDA is among the strictest in the world, right? So
Yeah.
they validate the entire system, which makes it very difficult for a software developer. If you cannot have agreement coming from hardware company, it's impossible for you to get your software, approved or cleared for 510K. So in Taiwan, the regulation for hardware and software are independent. That makes it
Mhm.
much easier for us, right? So we can, just validate our software and get approved by itself. So it doesn't tie us to, although we do have to specify which scanner that it can work with, but we don't have to submit our application together. So that makes things a lot easier. And in Japan, um, it's interesting that you don't necessarily have to um, be approved as a medical device so that you can supply your IMS to customers, as long as you keep the traditional microscope. We inquired about that issue with Ministry of Health, and they told us if you keep your traditional microscope, then it's not necessary that you validate your software. I mean, IMS or viewer as a medical device, because you're not replacing the gold standard. So that
Yeah.
makes it extra easy for us to do business in Japan,
Yeah.
right? In Europe, in EU, yeah, there's been a recent change that made it difficult. In the past, they have IVDD, which is easier, but now they're slowly moving to IVDR. The process takes longer, the cost goes higher. So, that's a risk there, but we have to overcome that. But I think slowly, when regulatory agencies see more examples of software being actually deployed in real world, they will have a better understanding of the true risks. It's actually a low risk device. So when they see that, they might be more relaxed when it comes to, their regulatory policies. So I hope that this all will change.
Yeah. I mean, and I hope so too. But, in the US, if anything, the FDA is becoming more conservative at the moment with its regulation of LDTs.
I think they have their reasons, but they should also be more open to the feedback coming from the industry, because I think they're stifling the development of the industry as a whole. It's not
Mm.
a good thing, because US is falling behind when it comes to adoption of digital pathology. While Europe is now moving faster, Taiwan, we have around 60% of the medical centers now digital in pathology. It's moving much, much faster than the US.
Yeah. And, there are pockets of Europe that are very digital, such as the Scandinavian countries, where
Yes.
virtually everyone is digitized.
Yeah.
So it's quite variable throughout Europe, but it makes it clear that it is possible for countries to to move to that level of digitization.
Yeah. Well, if they're open to just listening to, what people say in Europe think, about these digital technology, maybe they can, relax a bit. Some of the regulations, I think it's overkill.
Mhm.
They care too much about the technical details. So, for example, the pixel-wise comparison, it doesn't make sense for pathologists. They don't care about pixel-wise difference, because they look at big patterns. Who cares if there's a 2% difference in the pixel value? They cannot detect it. And also, the truth is, the great majority of the pathologists don't use medical grade computer monitor for making diagnosis. They use just high-end consumer screens.
Yeah, that's
That's a
true.
fact. They just cannot afford a medical screen. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
FDA should listen to their feedback. They're
Yeah.
making digital pathology unnecessarily expensive.
Yeah. I agree with that. And thinking about, the future in spite of the FDA and other regulatory bodies, it's quite interesting that there are a number of young pathologists coming through into the field now who have only been trained digitally. And I've spoken to 2 or 3 heads of lab who said they've had these people coming in who have never signed off on a microscope.
Oh,
Now that's very interesting, and that has to be a trend which almost forces digitization, because you can imagine a future where there are labs which are entirely digital that never sign off on microscopes. And then the digital field becomes self-fulfilling.
yes, but I also believe we need to do more. So I believe that digital pathology and AI is the third revolution of pathology. The first revolution was immunofluorescence in 1940s, right? So with an antibody give you a superpower to look at just one specific structure or say proteins. So it has a very high contrast ratio because you don't see anything else. The second revolution is for genetic sequencing or say molecular pathology because it gave pathologists a power to see what they were not able to see before. I think it's the same with especially AI. Not particularly digital pathology, because for digital pathology, they're seeing the same thing as they saw. It's just more convenient. But with
Hmm.
AI now, there is a hope that they have some superhuman powers. For example, for RT quantification, very few pathologists actually count cells one by one because they just don't have the time. But with AI, it does count one by one. And you can very carefully calibrate how AI quantify individual cells. And with
Hmm.
AI, because it doesn't get tired, so it can calculate the entire slide, you don't have to do the so-called, hotspot. With hotspot, there's a high degree of variability. Different pathologists pick different hotspot. So they do know at the bottom of their mind that their results are not reproducible today, tomorrow. So with AI, you can have a more homogeneous report standard. So, but then it takes a lot of effort from the companies to work together with the pathologist to create a new standard for pathology, the AI assisted pathology. It'll be a
Hmm.
more stringent standard than the traditional ones. In the traditional standard, there's a lot of gut feeling and there's a lot of, if you're an expert, whatever you say is right. But with AI, it can provide objective truth that can be verified by other people, that can be reproduced reliably. So I think that'll be a new era for pathology, but it requires tremendous amount of research. But if we can make it happen, I think that is when every pathologist will want to go digital because that is where this or how the new standard is being set up. That is where we're going, and that is why we're still actively engaged in a lot of research together with pathologists and societies.
Mm. Do you think we'll reach a sort of 2-tier perspective where there are the larger labs offering digital pathology backed by AI diagnosis, giving very rapid turnaround times, and then another level that is traditional and is using microscopes, H&Es, IHC, etc.?
Yes, I do believe that is the future. Because still, if you want to go digital, you need to make capital investment. That is that's business here, right? If you have a small volume, probably doesn't justify investing in scanners and software and computer server, anyways, because you'll never recover the cost you invest. But with big labs, their goals are different. They're probably profit oriented, and also they care about high throughput. And that is where AI shines. And that is where a capable IMS makes a very big difference. So when you look at the big labs, biopsy constitute a major portion of their workflow. So it's homogeneous workflow that can be helped by AI that makes upfront capital investment a lot of them justifiable. So if you invest in one AI algorithm that can cover 10% of your workflow, that's a good investment. So um, it is with that in mind that we are now changing our direction a little bit to focus more on the biopsy side and also to work more on the back end side. because although a lot of people are making AIs, but few of them care about the backend, meaning how AI is being scheduled and how do you handle the management of the GPU resource? How do you make it efficient so that you don't have to buy a lot of GPU servers because those are expensive? And how do you integrate with Lisp so that you don't have to click? Whenever you have a new case that fits the criteria for triggering AI, the system will take care of the application of AI automatically to the slide. And also you have to do structured reporting and send the report back to Lisp automatically for pathologists to verify. So there's a lot of integration that need to be done. But I think that is an important trend, and that is also the direction we're going.
Yeah, great. And of course, aetherAI is going to be a huge part of that digital future. Joe, thank you for speaking to me today. I'd just like to point I'd like to point our listeners to aetherAI's pages on Pathology News, where there's a lot of further information. And also just mention that you will be present at USCAP this year, which is March 22nd to 27th in Boston. And I think I'm right, booth 229, is that right, Joe?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you for speaking to me today. It's been a real pleasure. I've loved hearing about aetherAI, learning about your solutions, and best of luck for the future. Thank you.
Thank you.